and welcome along to our weekly Think About It session where we talk about empowered leadership discussions. We take a little snippet of a topic and dive deeper into it that we're talking about in the wider world with our clients, and we thought it might be helpful to bring that to the wider audience. Tienie, hello, welcome along.
Hello, Kirsty. Thank you. Yes, it's always lovely having a conversation. I look forward to Thursdays. It's now my favorite kind of half an hour in the day. I've also recently, as you know, in some of our calls, been made aware of some lurkers, people that kind of just consume this every day, every Thursday, and are kind of being part of that. So hello to all the lurkers out there, and I'm glad that you could join us. And please just message us and just tell us what you think, and let us know if we can help you in any way.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes we sit here and it is just me and you, and we do.
Yes.
And we do kind of get into it, the topic, but there are people that then message me and reach out and go, I listen to you every week. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone that comes along. Whether you message, comment here live, or listening to us somewhere else, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So today, Tienie, we are talking about leadership in times of uncertainty. And we always like to pick a juicy topic. And we like to dive really deep and just get really specific on things that we talk about, but I am really conscious that is again once quite a broad topic, so let's kind of put some boundaries around it. Like, what do we even mean? Let's put some context to what we're talking about, because there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot going on in the business world. So what do we mean? Where are we starting? So
let's talk a little bit about uncertainty, because that's what it's about. And I was attending a talk that Dr. David Rock, who developed the SCARF model, was doing via Davos. I think this was 2 Friday nights ago, something like that. An amazing conversation that we had around uncertainty and the neuroscience that sits behind that, and the overthinking that takes place. Because when you're uncertain, you are trying to subconsciously solve it for yourself. And so in that space of uncertainty, how are we, from a leadership perspective, running businesses, helping the people that are in our teams and our colleagues of ours feel certain about the uncertainty that they can see? And how do we nurture that and help people from an empathetic way in that space of uncertainty?
And I think what's really important is, like, we're talking about this because there's a lot of change going on in the world right now. There's a lot of change going on in the business landscape, in the bigger world stage landscape, with all the stuff going on. But we're talking about uncertainty, and that could even be right down to what's going on for an individual in your business. That could be going on with what's going on in a function in your business. So there's different factors that play and drive uncertainty for me. And whilst this might be relevant in the wider work and landscape at the minute, it's relevant all the time to what's going on in your business. And I know we've talked previously about change and things, but it's about how are we recognizing that uncertainty? Because it might be really obvious, like what's going on. If we're going through, I don't know, being acquired, restructuring, what's going on in the world and how that's impacting people personally, like that's really obvious. But how are we being aware as an organization, for me, that uncertainty might be creeping in for people within our teams?
So the where I'd like to go with this conversation, I mean, we can go into strategic decision-making, resilience. We can go into all of those things that a leader requires to demonstrate a strong and safe pair of hands and directional orientation. Those are things that we can talk about from a what are we representing perspective. But the starting point for me is to actually, what is the experience that you're creating that is offering certainty for your people? And it could be that just one-to-one discussion. Oh, I know there's quite a few changes that are happening, and there's a bit of reshuffling going on. We're going to be talking to you guys as soon as we know where things have landed, in a meaningful and kind way. And I can let you know that it's going to happen within the next 48 hours. Give certainty and clarity around the experience, even if it is an uncertainty that you're needing to communicate. Make that experience a kind and empathetic experience. Um, yes, we can't help people overthinking and running ahead and problem solving for themselves and doing all of those things, but offering some kind of certainty and uncertainty space and making the experience a bit of a kinder experience
Yeah.
is an approach.
It is. And can I just share something that I see? And I think what might be helpful is kind of how is uncertainty created sometimes? Because I see something where managers try to withhold stuff and not communicate, thinking they are protecting their team, but actually what that's doing is creating uncertainty because people aren't silly. They can see what's going on. There's the rumor mill. They can see things changing. So sometimes unintentionally, managers and leaders can create uncertainty when actually they could help people see a bit of certainty in that noise, if that makes sense. So sometimes
Yes,
people try to protect and try and keep that information from them, but sometimes just being really open and saying there is stuff going on, I can tell you what I can tell you, and I will keep you in the loop as much as I can, but please bear in mind there's things that I obviously can't say, but when I can, I will. Do you know what I
yes,
mean? So even
yes.
just being open in that context, I feel is better than just going, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Let's not talk about the elephant in the room. Let's not pretend nothing's happening. Do you know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure, sure. Yeah, and the emotional intelligence comes to play in that space.
Yeah.
Having trusting yourself, knowing that you're a great team leader or manager, and knowing your team, because make no mistake, your colleagues will know something's going on before you think they
They know.
know that something's going on.
Yeah.
and and let's not fool ourselves that in these times of uncertainty that people are getting clarity on the way they love to work and will find an organization that offers them that. If you haven't communicated to them that this is that we will meet you where you are and maybe try and accommodate what you need, then yes, that's that you will lose them. And an example I can give is the hybrid, I mean, the work at home hybrid, totally in the office shift that's happening from a whole redesign of work perspective. Now, as soon as the message goes out, you guys have got to be in the office physically 5 days a week. Um, People are going to find a situation that suits them better. Some people are going to actually pursue that because that's what they want. I would rather that communication be, guys, we're considering that this is going to happen.
Mhm.
How can we mitigate for that? How could we adjust that? What are some of the things that are kind of non-negotiables for you? And have a discussion around that. Even if it's a little bit of a difficult discussion, people would rather stay with someone that communicated them through the change that was happening
Yeah.
than
100%.
someone that just sprung things on them and said, dude, punitively, this is what you're going to be doing, like
Yeah.
it or lump it.
100%. And I just think it's taking people with you on that process, on that journey, on that decision making, isn't it? And I think, but we talking here about uncertainty within organizations when potentially leadership have a impact. Sometimes the leaders of businesses and the owners of businesses, they live in a world of uncertainty, right? Of like
Yes,
government
yes,
changes, world trade changes. Like there is things that if you go up a layer, they live in a state of uncertainty. And that's where what you mentioned earlier at the beginning, like that resilience comes in and having that support network. And they're more around the strategy of what you can control versus what you can't control and things like that come into play, don't they? So I
yeah.
think it's worth recognizing that there's different levels of uncertainty created within a business.
The the kind of layers in the organization. If you're in a senior leadership role, the way that you represent yourself in a measured, respectful, and emotionally intelligent way helps the people that are your colleagues and in your teams and that are leading your teams on your behalf feel that you are a safe pair of hands, that you are, you know, the direction of travel, you're orientated towards the success of the business, and people feel comfortable in that space. And that's what helps you facilitate a presence that you bring to leadership that helps people want to be around you, stay in the business because they feel comfortable and safe in that space. As soon as you are hiding stuff, or as soon as you don't want to communicate, as soon as you are avoiding people, that is when the rumor starts,
Yeah.
suspicions start being communicated, uncertainty gets compounded, productivity decreases. As soon as the uncertainty triggers into uncertainty to a particular level in your business, productivity decreases by a minimum of 5 to 12%.
Yeah. And what I'd like to say though is those people doing that or choosing that behavior as managers or leaders, they may not be intentionally doing it. They might be surviving in their own role, trying to save the business, establish a strategy to get out of it or whatever it is. But it's about that emotional intelligence piece for me of like leading and doing and understanding that in times of uncertainty, you need to understand what's going on for your people as well as trying
Yeah,
to maybe put fires
yeah,
out. And that's sometimes
yeah,
difficult because you could get pulled in to a resolution very quickly rather than actually going, what does this look like from outside the boardroom? How are we
yeah.
communicating this? Like, how are we creating certainty in this space of time of uncertainty for our
Certainty.
people?
Yeah.
So, quick question for those listening and those that might find themselves in that position or haven't kind of gone through that. What might they be seeing in their teams if they are in that headspace of they've got their head down as a manager or a leader, they're trying to solve this problem, they're trying to firefight, they're trying to save whatever's going on, like, but they are unintentionally creating uncertainty for their team. What will they be seeing from their team day to day to help them become aware that this behavior isn't helpful?
Yeah. And so I think those of you who listen to this know me by now that I come at it from a slightly different space. And I'd like to just go back and just give an example of what was great from an uncertainty perspective. So government regulation came into the small business that would impact them severely, where they might lose 50% of their clientele due to the regulations that have been implemented by government, and which created massive stress for the senior leadership team, which is about four people. And in that space, they then said, okay, so the best thing for us to do would be to pivot and expand on this one element of our business that is the smallest income bringer. But if we expand on that, it fits neatly into the expansion. Yes, we're going to have to prospect a bit more, find new customers, do some marketing, repivot our business. But that's the piece that's working for us. That's our solution. But let's take it to our people, have a discussion about it so that everybody becomes part of the solution. And that creates the certainty. So from that perspective, let me pivot into the question that you've presented to me. As soon as people, yes, you get people that just come in and clock out. You get that. But as soon as that happens to people that you know don't normally do that, that's a sign of uncertainty. Where people are you're seeing little huddles in your office where people are having 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, when your greatest performer is walking very slowly from the coffee machine back to their desk. Those are things that are kind of behavioral signs that you'll see, where almost every day seems to be a bit of a bad day for some of the team members. Another piece also is where there's a little bit of a dampness on excitement, where there used to be quite an excitement in the business.
Mhm.
And then how do we solve for that?
Yeah.
30-minute discussion. Bring the team in. I'm seeing all of this stuff. I'm becoming a little bit, I'm overcompensating and feeling uncertain about stuff. I know that there's uncertainty in the business, but let's just talk about this amongst
Yeah.
ourselves to see, first of all, just to raise the concerns you have and
Mhm.
see if I can help and have a discussion around that. And then with these concerns, we either succeed or we learn. It's an opportunity. What can we do as a team to alleviate that for us in the business? And so let's have a constructive discussion from a solution seeking orientation rather than a uh, having corner discussions in a dark room situation.
Because I suppose the consequences of not having that intervention and open communication, which you mentioned there, is you're going to start to see people leave. You're going to start to see people's productivity drop. You're going to start to see people unhappy. You're going to start to see that engagement drop. Like, there is a lot of consequence of just ignoring it and kind of going,
Yeah,
I've got enough to deal with. I can't deal with keeping them happy. That's almost
yeah,
like the instant quick, you think that's the quick fix of going, I'll just deal with that later, but actually there is detrimental consequences to that longevity, I suppose, if you don't have that open communication.
yeah. And ironically, it'll be your talent because your talent knows
Yeah.
their own worth.
Yeah.
And if you're going to keep them in the dark, they're going to find a place that offers certainty and transparency to them. And other than people that just find this uncertainty inconvenient, and would communicate that to you from a child ego perspective. The
Yeah.
the talent will keep quiet because they're solution oriented. They will solve this for themselves if you as a business aren't going to help them and communicate with them and say, listen, we're on the trajectory of solving this for us all, and we want you to be
Yeah.
part of it, rather than we're going to keep you in the dark. A talented individual is going to say, okay, I've been in the dark for a month now. It's going on to 6 weeks. Let me do something about it for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes there isn't a solution for everybody involved, is there?
No,
Sometimes it is.
no.
Sometimes it is uncomfortable for a longer period. Sometimes it might end up in not the outcome that everyone would really like. And I think sometimes people think by giving certainty, you're almost confirming. By creating certainty, you're telling them they're going to have a job forever. By keeping them certain, you know exactly what's going on in the business. But that's not at all what we're saying, is there? Because we can't guarantee stuff like that in times of
No,
uncertainty.
no.
Sometimes it's even just saying, look, we're in this together. We don't know as much as you don't know, but we'll keep the lines of communication open to how we can work together to try and get a resolution together. Or we're not quite sure how this is going to impact the business yet, but we really open to keeping you in the loop of that. Do you know, like, it's sometimes even just acknowledging that this is uncomfortable for everybody. We
Yeah,
don't have all the answers. And that's better than saying nothing and letting people sit and worry and think, what is going on? How is this going to impact us? Do I
yes,
have a job
yes,
in 6 months'
yes,
time? You know?
yes. When a leader in the business, the CEO, managing director, or whatever the title is of that person that's creating the strategic intent and moving the business forward, as soon as their colleagues or people that report into them come to them and say, there's a rumor going on, there's uncertainty in the business, there's blah, that is when you as a leader need to step in a measured way and say, let's quickly have a town hall, let's quickly do this. This is the message that I am giving you as the leader of this business, to offer up some kind of safety in the thinking to help you in this space of uncertainty. And even if it's a narrative around, I don't know yet what's going on, I'm in the same boat as you, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what we do have, 80% of our clients are still purchasing from us. 80% of our clients are still
Mm.
working with us. We are getting into a good space. Yes, sales might be diminishing or becoming less at the minute, but we need to come see how we as a business can pivot and shift into the direction that's required for this business. And we'd love you to help us. But at
Mm.
the minute, we're uncertain and don't know what's next for
Yeah.
us in quarter 3 or quarter 4 or quarter 1 next year. But as soon as we do, we'll let you know. And that should be within the next 3 weeks. We'll come back to you. Even if then we say to you, we still don't know, give
Yeah.
people at least 21 days just
Yeah.
to reflect on things. Anything longer
Yeah.
becomes festering.
What do you think? Because listening to that, I straight away can see challenges from people listening. As from a manager, from a leader, like the going to be saying, but what about this and what about that? And we can't do that. Like, what are the biggest challenges of why people don't do this approach, and why aren't they so open and honest? And I think just listening to you there, the first thing that comes to mind is almost vulnerability and ego of like, we have to have it all together. We have to have the solution. We can't show weakness. We can't be on the same level. And that almost creates a defense, doesn't it? And a brick wall between the business. I don't know. So what do you think? Why do you think people don't take that approach?
They are wrapped up in their own space, which is the immediate environment they find themselves in. The second reason is they don't trust their managers that are reporting into them that they're telling the truth. It's just going to go away. Yeah, we'll get to quarter 3 and it'll go away and our numbers will come up, and so they're out of touch with what's going on at the forefront of
Like
their
on the
business,
ground.
on the ground. They have been unsure about their business for a long time and don't want to display that vulnerability because they've done nothing about it. So there's I don't want to call it hidden agendas, but I think there's truths that haven't been revealed that they feel and are fearful that will be revealed once they have those discussions. My suggestion is have those discussions no matter how difficult they are, because it's not just about you.
Yeah.
You have 60 people working for you. You have 20 people working for you. You have 10 people working for you. You have 10,000 people working for you. Be clear, offer certainty.
I'm reading a book at the minute. Have you read Radical Candour before?
Yes.
I just
love it.
Love it. Like, for anyone that's listening, go and check it out. It's called Radical Candour, and it is just taking radical responsibility and having the difficult, open conversations. And this kind of plays into what we're seeing here is conversations in business sometimes are hard, but if everyone's just honest with an intent of kindness and empathy, like, then we can be a lot more transparent and feel and create that certainty in times of uncertainty, because they know. So like, I know, Tinie, if you open, honest, direct, but from a place of kindness, I know that if we had a conversation like that, I'd trust that you had my back. You'd trust that whilst we're having a difficult conversation, this is for the greater good, this conversation. And actually, I'm doing you a disservice by not telling you this and not having that open conversation. Exactly. So it just feeds into that kind of, if we can all take radical responsibility for our role in everything going on, that whilst it might feel uncomfortable, and I don't mean, I'm not coming from this isn't Radical Candour is about kindness and empathy, by the way. It's not about aggression and ripping people down. It's about having really open, direct, transparent conversations from a place of empathy and kindness for the greater good. And I just think if we all had that mindset, it might make that a bit easier for people to deal with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this brings to mind the whole ego concept of parent, adult, child ego. And if you're spending time in your parent ego, you're not going to reprimand yourself. And so none of that radical candor will come across in an adult way or a measured way or an emotionally intelligent way. And so be careful of your radical candor. I've been radically candid with this person. I just don't like the way they dress. that is coming from a
That's
place
not,
of unkindness
yeah,
and
no,
potentially a parent ego. So
yeah,
it's how do we manage this for ourselves?
yeah,
And radical candor isn't for everyone,
no,
and and also radical candor delivered poorly can be detrimental to a
yes,
business.
it
And
can.
it's all of those things that need to be considered in the space of that. Um, and we don't want to create even further uncertainty.
No, absolutely not. And I think understand, and this comes back to emotional intelligence and self-awareness, doesn't it? And I think this amplifies why managers and leaders need support and skills to manage and lead effectively. And I think sometimes we find out in times of uncertainty those really good people managers versus
Yes,
not,
yes,
because it can be easily switched to, we forget about the people and we go to protection of the business, the moment in time, the problem, or whatever it is. And I just think this is why the importance of people development in organizations, I think we sometimes think our return on investment of investing in training and things like this for our managers and leaders, we kind of like, well, how do we identify that? But I think in times of uncertainty, I think that massively comes to the forefront of how we manage uncertainty in organizations.
yeah. And only lately, I've been Stephen Bartlett, I've been Dr. David Rock, I've been Adam Grant, I've been doing a bit of submersion that I've got because I've got a bit of time into all of this stuff, and the one word keeps popping into my head, and that is culture.
Mm, yeah.
And what is your culture saying about your business? And
Mm-hmm.
whatever that message is, it's most probably at a high likelihood the truth.
Yes.
And so that focus on that to
Yeah.
create certainty. And so for us, and I was going to mention this to you, is that that's another discussion that I think we should have on a Thursday, is just the word culture.
100% culture.
Just the word culture.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Because all of that stuff that you create as a leader, that you want to sustain your business in, you want to scale it, you want to go through the S curve from a growth perspective, all of those things, the golden thread through all of that is your business culture.
100%. And I think in times of uncertainty, I think your culture will genuinely define whether you get through it unscathed or get through it as successfully as you can,
Yeah.
or not. I really do.
How many people have you got there that's going to protect you, that have got your back? How many people can you go and
Mm.
talk to from a kindness and empathetic perspective? What are the people that you're surrounding yourself with that are giving you that energy? Um,
Yeah.
it's all of these conversations that we
Yeah.
love having around
Absolutely. And
that.
even and us facilitating these kinds of conversations is all part of what we do and how we
Yeah,
support organizations with their managers and leaders.
yeah,
So obviously we're coming to the end of our time. This is something that I feel like we've talked about for like 2 minutes, but we could talk all day about.
yeah,
So like there's
yeah,
so much feeds into this. I think for anyone listening, if they find themselves in a time of uncertainty for whatever reason, internal or external, I think from what I could take away from what we've just said, it's around that real, open, transparent communication and understanding and leading with empathy,
yeah,
and that resilience of your culture, I think.
yeah,
What
yeah.
else would you add?
So there's two key elements that I feel that leaders can do to help in times of uncertainty. The one is strategic decision making and being transparent with that
Yeah.
in the moment that it's required and communicating that out. And making sure everybody knows the direction of travel. And the second one is line management savvy.
Yeah.
Trust your line managers because they are involved with everybody on a day-to-day basis. Trust what they're saying to you from a leadership perspective. And so, but also, do you have line management savvy? Do
I
you
was just going to
understand how they're
say,
working?
yeah,
Are you aware of what their behavioral
yeah,
attributes are? How uncertain are they in these times? And so
yeah.
it's those two things I think are the pivot pieces for me. during times of uncertainty.
And those things there that we've just mentioned, if we proactive, there's less. We need to be less reactive in times of uncertainty, aren't we? So if we proactive with that stuff, it comes out in the times of uncertainty to help manage and lead better, for sure. Right. Thank you so much, Tienie, as always. And we will see you next week. If anyone has any